What's going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, and joining me as always, Jordan Ellis. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Not
How are
too
you doing?
bad. We had to retake this one because we had some technical issues. We've already spoken about it, but you had some early fights this past weekend. Obviously, UFC Fight Night, Ortega versus the Korean Zombie. What do you think of that card?
Yeah, it was a good card. There was some decent standout moments where some fighters looked great. We had Nurmagomedov in the first fight. He looked brilliant. And then a bit further up the card, you had some standout performances from the likes of Jimmy Crute, Andrade, and then Ortega in the main event. So it had a lot to live up to in terms of last week's card. It was phenomenal, that one. It weren't quite of that standard, but it was a good, fun card. And as I said earlier, early night for me. I was all wrapped up before 3 a.m., so I really can't
Yeah,
complain.
for sure. And we'll jump straight into that main event because it was the highlight of the evening. One thing about it that did surprise me though is Ortega didn't get a bonus, but this performance he put on was just phenomenal. His striking showcase really showed the leaps and bounds his career has evolved and how much better he's gotten striking in such a short amount of time to go in there and do 25 with the Korean Zombie and just piece him apart. And a lot of it might have to do with the fact that Korean Zombie probably wasn't expecting a lot of what Ortega did throw. But nonetheless, he looked phenomenal. And he definitely looked like a new fighter.
Yeah, he looked phenomenal, and going into the fight, I am a fan of Ortega, so I ended up picking against him, and it was just because of that 2 year layoff. I can't, unfortunately I don't get an inside look into his camp and what he's been up to, so it's hard to know that he's making these massive strides in his camp. And as a young fighter who's got all the potential in the world, you want him to be doing that, but you can't bank on it. Whereas the Korean Zombie's been looking good lately. He's been looking strong. Besides getting caught by Yair in the last second of their fight, he's on a decent win streak, and it was just hard to pick against them. But Ortega did what I think a few people thought he could do. He reinvented himself. It's Brian Ortega 2.0. I think he looked absolutely fantastic, and he dominated the fight, and he put down the Korean Zombie on a couple of occasions, and it was a brilliant standout performance on a good card, and he gets a shot now, and well done to him. It's great to see him
Yeah,
back.
and I mean, the one round where Korean Zombie looked like he was having more success was in that second round until about a minute before the round ended. Ortega landed that spinning elbow and just dropped him. And from that point of the fight onwards, Korean Zombie just didn't seem the same. And he just got outpointed in all accounts. And he did really get dominated. One thing about Ortega, though, in this fight, his wrestling as well was another thing that we saw great improvements in. Previously, obviously his jiu-jitsu is his thing, is fantastic on the ground, but he's never really taken people down. In the past, he's snatched their neck in like clinch situations or in scrambles or when they've pressured him on the cage. But this was the first time we've seen him shoot in like a single leg wrestling technique and run it down the pipe to secure the takedown. Granted, he did it when Zombie was hurt, but he was using it as well to set up his strikes just to fake the takedown, make Zombie think. And I think that's going to help him a lot, especially in the fight against Volkanovski, like having that threat of a takedown. Because even though his jiu-jitsu is so great, he didn't really have that takedown threat before.
I think everything he done in that fight was really smart. It was a complete mixed martial artist, performance, and he was using it. You had the fakes on the takedowns to come up and rip in. He didn't initiate the clinch only to break the clinch and then throw something on the exit. It was, and then he actually secured the takedowns when he needed them. And I think Zombie said in his post-fight post on Instagram or Facebook or wherever it was, is that he can't remember the last 3 rounds. So that's how damaging Brian Ortega's elbow was. And it kind of looked like that because he seemed to be a bit on autopilot. He was struggling to get his shots off, and he might have just been concussed. So Ortega just had his way with him, and it was just super impressive. And it's great to see him make them strides because he looked nowhere near the level to beat someone like Volkanovski again when he fought Max Holloway. He got absolutely bossed, and it was a tough watch as a fan in the end. But he's come back, and he looked fantastic, and he showed everything you need, and now it's just interesting. Him against Volkanovski, it's a very interesting matchup now. Like, what does Volkanovski do with him? Because this is a tough man to beat at 145. So, very excited about that fight. I'm not sure when we get it. I'm not even sure Volkanovski can get into the US. So we might be waiting a little while, but when it does happen, it'll be fun.
Well, Volkanovski posted on his Instagram today that February sounds good, so hopefully we get it then. But just stray away from that a little bit, I think the Holloway rematch would be a very interesting fight for Ortega now. Now we've seen the advancement in his striking, because that was the problem he had in that fight. He just got outstruck in every account. And Ortega at that point had a bit of an issue with, he loved to get in a brawl. He loved to just try and throw back and take shots to throw shots, which was completely different to this Ortega, who was happy to go backwards looking for counters, wouldn't really give Korean Zombie anything to counter at. He was only really throwing out his jab every time he knew he could stick it. He wasn't going forward and putting combinations together, you know. A lot of his best stuff came as counters from stuff that Korean Zombie did, which is something that he could utilize against someone like Max, who does come forward a lot, does throw big combinations of punches. So I'd like to see that fight again, but obviously I don't want to see it again next. I think Ortega earned his title shot. Everyone was saying for months after Volkanovski beat Max the first time even, that the Korean Zombie is going to beat Volkanovski. The Korean Zombie is the one who's going to be champ by the end of the year. Well, Brian Ortega comes out there and puts on that showcase against the Korean Zombie. You can't deny the guy a title shot.
No, it's definitely. I think that's a very sellable fight. I think Ortega, outside of Holloway, is probably the biggest star in that division. So I think it's a great fight for the UFC to make. And then the Korean Zombie, I did just want to mention, I don't think this is peak Zombie we've just seen the other night. Maybe he was a bit buzzed, but he just seemed to have that thing that, I don't want to put him in the same category, but Robbie Lawler and people like that who just seem like they're not letting the hands go like they used to. And I hope that's not what we're seeing. And I hope they match him up against someone like Max, where they can just have a tear up and he can get back into the mix, because I think maybe Ortega made him hesitant, because every time he pushed in, Ortega either wasn't there or was, punishing him with stuff. So it was... It weren't the best Zombie we've ever seen, but I think Ortega needs to take the vast amount of credit for that, just because he was able to make him so unsure and just not look like that. So it was brilliant. And Ortega, 100% the number one contender. I don't think you can really pass him up now, unless, I don't know, Cejudo wants to come back and they want to do that fight. I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, Ortega, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does next.
I don't know if it's the best comparison, but maybe it's something like for Korean Zombie in this fight, as we saw with Tony Ferguson in that fight against Justin Gaethje, where Tony Ferguson probably didn't expect Justin Gaethje to be so reserved with his striking and be so methodical. He probably thought he was going to be the Justin Gaethje of old, who comes forward and happy to take one to throw one. And when it wasn't like that, it kind of put him off his game, which I think for Korean Zombie in this fight, he probably didn't have any idea how Ortega was going to look on the feet. For him to come out there and look as reserved as he did and as happy to go backwards, like I said, and look for counters, I think it probably just shocked him, to be honest. And once that elbow landed, obviously he was dazed, didn't want to go in and get hit like that again. He got dropped again later in the fight. I can't really remember what it was from. Oh, it was the clash of heads, and then he smacked him when he put him up against the cage. But yeah, after that elbow, it was pretty much done, wasn't it? But perfect performance by Ortega. Really excited to see him fight the champ. But we'll move on to the co-main event in this one, which was women's flyweight bout between Katlyn Chookagian, who was the number one contender, against former strawweight champion Jessica Andrade, moving up to flyweight for the first time, coming up there and looking pretty damn good. What do you think?
Yeah, she looks sensational. It's kind of what I expected, to be fair. I think this flyweight division, there's lots of contenders all on the same level, but Andrade is, one or two levels above all of them, and she showed that. I think she's actually a decent test for Valentina, which is, as high as praise as I can give, really, because Valentina looks like a world beater, and the rest of these girls in the division are a couple notches below even Andrade, who I believe is a couple notches below Valentina. So it's I think she's the next contender. Hopefully, Valentina gets through Jennifer Maia and then we see that fight. But it was beautiful because she's gone out there and stopped her quicker than Valentina, so that's a statement in itself. And that nasty body shot and just following it up, she looked outsized in terms of height and things like that, but she's just a monster. She was picking her up in the air, she was throwing her to the floor, she was hitting her with body shots. It was just an absolute statement performance in a division that needs a standout contender, and I'm glad we finally got one.
Yeah, and her ability to get those takedowns despite the size difference really was impressive to me. That was probably the most impressive thing about her in this fight, regardless of the body shots and putting her away. I think the most impressive thing for me was her ability just to launch her in the air and pick her up and drop her, like, because she's such a small girl. I do think the Valentina matchup is tough for her because of the size difference. And in a fight against Caitlin Chookagian, you can have a size differential and you're not going to have to be too worried about getting finished by one big strike that's coming at you from a distance. But with Valentina, Andrade has to be perfect at all times because she's got a big distance she's got to make up for, and to get inside her comfortable range, she's putting herself in danger. So it will be an interesting fight if it should happen. I don't think it'll happen next. I think she's got to get another win here. I don't even think. I think they booked a matchup between Jessica Ai and... Oh, God, I'm blanking. But she'll fight one of these other contenders, and then if she gets a win there, maybe she'll be in next. But, yeah, will be an interesting one to see. Chookagian, she didn't look great in that, but she got finished early, so how could she look great over the time the fight went for 4 minutes, almost one round? She'll come back and she'll fight someone else. I'm sure she'll do well and stay at the top of the division.
Yeah, I think Andrade's just, she's just too much for these girls, and I think whoever they matches up with, if they want to give her an intermediary fight, I think it would just be beneficial to her. She'd get more time at the weight. She'd probably finish someone else in the first round, and she'd probably pick up another bonus or a bonus. Yeah, she got enough bonus in this one, so she looked great. And to make someone like Caitlin Chookagian, who's a tough girl, screaming pain basically from a body shot, and then she went back and got her with another one. That just shows you what Jessica Andrade's about, and she's a dangerous challenger for Valentina, and it'll be good when it finally comes off. But first thing first, she's got Jennifer Maia in a way, so you don't want to overlook anyone.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that one goes. We'll jump on to another performance, only other performance of the night bonus on this card, which came in the fight before between two of the best light heavyweight prospects in the UFC at the moment, in my opinion, Jim Crute and Modestas Bukauskas. And Jimmy Crute just looked sensational, didn't he? I thought he was going to finish this fight on the ground because personally, I think Modestas Bukauskas' weakest point of his game is his takedown defense. And Crute being such a submission ace, I expected him just to get on the cage, pull him down, and find a submission. Fairly easy. But in the stand-up, I thought Bukauskas would probably have his number. Wasn't the case. Crute was happy to just march forward, throw leg kicks, get in there, landed a big shot, and put him out. Pretty impressive performance.
Yeah, I think Crute, credit to him and his coaches, because I feel like they really studied up on their opponents and they found gaps where they thought, even though this guy's such a talented, kickboxer, we can have him here because there's gaps there, and they immediately started targeting that leg, chopping that down, stopping the movement, and then their thing was to swing as Modestas was swinging and thinking they could get in this inside and land one of them shots, and exactly what he did. He seemed to knock him out about 3 times in 3 seconds. It was brilliant stuff, and it was a really high level of performance against someone I rate. At 24 years old, Jimmy Crute, he's already got several big UFC wins on his record, so he's one to watch for sure, and a great prospect from Modestas. He's got there was gaps where he seems to just like throwing his combos, but then his chin's there, and if you can time him, someone like Jimmy Crute can get you in at 205 pounds. You're gonna go out, if you're there to be hit. So I think that's a learning curve for him in terms of UFC caliber fighters on as it's a new level here, and guys like Jimmy Crute will make you pay for things like that. So little tweaks in his approach to striking, maybe a bit more cautious when he comes forward. He could turn into a counter striker, or I'm sure his coaches have got that all sorted out. But he'll be back, and these two will probably meet again in a few years at the top of the division. So I don't mind this fight, and it was just a huge win for Jimmy Crute. So congrats to that guy.
Yeah, and then after the win, he calls out Nikita Krylov. Was it? That was his call out? Yeah. Which I think Nikita Krylov's ranked 8 from memory. Yeah, I think he's ranked 8. But I think it's a fair fight because you look at the trajectory of someone like Johnny Walker, right? Johnny Walker come in, got a couple of finishes on like unranked guys who are still pretty good, but unranked guys. Then he got that one finish on Misha Serkinov, and they just pushed him up there. I think he fought Corey Anderson after that, who was number 4 at the time, or number 6 at the time. It's like they're happy to do that to one of these guys. Why not give that to Jim Crute? Jim Crute, who's like, he's a very talented fighter. He's put together quite an impressive win streak. Quite an impressive wins since joining the UFC. His one loss came in a submission where he was probably winning the fight before the submission. Like, I didn't think he looked bad in that fight until he got submitted. So I feel like that is a fair thing to do for him. Give him that shot. Give him that top 10 opponent. And Nikita Krylov's a pretty impressive guy. His wrestling's really, really high level. I mean, look at what he did to Johnny Walker. Just took him down and just beat him up. He's not going to do that to Jimmy Crute. It's too dangerous to take him down and sit in his guard. So I think that's a fair fight. I'd like to see that fight. And what do you think? Do you think that's what they do next?
Yeah, I think that's a fair fight. I don't think that's over ambitious by Jimmy Crute at all. I don't think Krylov is someone they're gonna, be protecting or worry to, push. I think they would prefer Jimmy Crute to be, ranked eighth than Krylov because he's more sellable guy. He's English speaking. He's a really fun fighter. He's good on the mat, on the feet. So I think that's a good fight if Krylov wants to take it because he's in a nice position right now. But this light heavyweight division at the top is wide open. You've got guys like Anthony Smith dropping down and fighting Devin Clark, and it's all over the place. So I think that's a very doable fight. I don't think Crute is being cheeky or anything like that by calling for it either. So hopefully we can see it.
Yeah, for sure. Before that, we had Claudio Silva, submission ace, another one who hadn't lost in years. I think it was 2013 in time he'd lost before this fight, from memory, from the broadcast. Taking on James Krause, who's no scrub on the ground either, but obviously the striking is where he wanted to keep this fight, and he did such a good job at doing so. And he pretty much dominated the fight. He won all 3 rounds in my eyes. And when he got into trouble was after he had an injury in his knee. He was complaining in his corner about his knee being torn apart, but he still went out there and won the fight. Pretty impressive stuff by Krause.
Yeah, it was Claudio Silva's the underdog going in, and I was baffled as to why, because he's on such a streak, as you were saying, 13 years or something like that, unbeaten, and he'd submitted the last 3 people in a row, but then he didn't look great coming in. Like, obviously, aesthetically, he didn't look great. And then when he's throwing his punches, it was very amateurish and he was missing by a million miles. So it's not a surprise Krause was the favourite going in, and even on 11 days notice or wherever he got. But he looked great, and even with the injury, he was really tough. He was making Silva look amateurish as well. So, and James Krause is mainly coaching right now. He seems to be deep in that, but every so often he pops up and he reminds us he's a serious guy, and then after the fight he goes and calls out Joaquin Buckley as well. So he's still about, and it was a huge win and against Silva, who, as we said, was on such a run. Well done. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I didn't like that call out. I like seeing Krause at welterweight over middleweight. I know he didn't look too bad in his last fight at middleweight, but I think he's a better welterweight, and I think he should stay there. Although the two have beef. I don't know if you saw at the press conference, he said that Buckley tried to train with him, and he didn't like Buckley's personality or social media presence or something, where he was apparently just talking shit about a lot of other fighters online. So Krause told him to fuck off. So they've got a little bit of a storyline there, so maybe we work that into an impressive fight. But as far as the matchup goes, I don't know why he would want to take that. He's losing a lot of size to Buckley. No, I don't think in terms of height or anything, but just like stockiness and build. So it might be a tough fight for him. Not to say he can't win it, but I prefer to see him at welterweight. But yeah, we'll see where that goes. What do you think of that fight?
Yeah, I totally agree. I prefer him at welterweight. I feel like he's just a perfect welterweight size. He has advantages at welterweight that he would be giving up at middleweight. And if that was middleweight and he had that injured knee, I doubt he would have got through the fight because someone would have cracked him. So it's I hope he stays at welterweight. But it's always fun to see these guys calling. James Krause is a really cool guy, and he's his game is to come. So he's going to be calling for that fight if he's got beef with someone who's getting all this attention right now. But what you do with James Krause, because he's one of them guys where I don't think he's really got any interest in making a title run. I think he's got a few more fights in him, and then he'll be walking away from the sport. So I want to see him in these fun fights. Maybe the Donald Cerrone's or the Nico Prices or Vicente Luque's. Around that thing, I think he could have some really, really fun fights.
Yeah, I agree, and hopefully he gets one of those because I'd love to see it as well. Opening the main card, we had Thomas Almeida's return against Jonathan Martinez. I pretty much thought Martinez was going to pick him apart in this one, and he really did. It's a pretty impressive performance. Not the best performance for Almeida, but what can you do? He had a bit of a layoff, and he came back, and I'm sure he'll come back and get a win after this.
Yeah, it's tough. Almeida's always had this hype behind him, because he come up so quickly and he was such a knockout artist, and then you'd have a few losses. He's took 3 years off basically, and now he's back here, and it's always going to be tough. And you're still on the main card. He's still got that pulling power, but his talent isn't or his ability isn't there right now. So hopefully they just book him again for another fight, get him in there, get the cobwebs off. He should be better in the next one, and we can see him come again. But Jonathan Martinez gets one of the biggest wins of his career, and he continues to look good. So well done him.
Absolutely. So I'll pick up one prelim first, and then you can grab whatever ones you want. The one I'm going to choose is the Jun Yong Park fight against John Phillips. John Phillips has a bit of a hole in his game, doesn't he? And it really was exposed in that Chimaev fight, but it was definitely exposed in this fight here, where Park landed, I'm pretty sure, the record of ground and pound strikes in the history of the UFC, and just demolished his opponent on the ground. And it was quite funny seeing Chimaev trying to help Phillips with his wrestling in the back room before he went out to fight, and then he just got dominated. Did you see that one, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know what? It takes away the shine from Chimaev's win. Everyone was raving about that win, but it's really not that impressive considering that Park was able to do, and he's primarily a striker. So it's a tough one for Phillips. What do you do? It's up to the UFC though, because they know Joe Phillips is never going to be a contender in terms of he's not going to be making a run at the rankings or anything like that. So why match him up against people who want to wrestle him? You even need to be smart with it really, and say, let's put him in some bangers or release him, and he can maybe go to Burner Hull and he can do well there. Because obviously I don't want to see John Phillips wrestle for 3 rounds. And Park was smart. He took the easiest route to victory, which is smart. But if you're going to be fighting Phillips, I just want to see him on the feet and go for it. So it's a tough spot for the UFC now. What do they do with him? Because he's been bossed 2 fights in a row now. The second against someone who's not even a wrestler. So do they keep him, try and put him in fun fights, or do they let him go?
Hey, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what they do there. But let's not take away from Park's performance, because like you said, he's not a wrestler, but he really showed some impressive wrestling and ground and pound in this one. Despite the opponent, it was still a very impressive performance, and I saw a lot of people calling for him to fight Chimaev next. I don't know about that. I mean, Chimaev just beat Meerschaert, who was border top 15. So, but yeah, it does really take away from the shine of Chimaev, doesn't it?
It does. It's John Phillips. He just didn't seem to have anything. I don't even think Park's wrestling was particularly impressive. He just seemed to grab him and he'd go over, which is it's crazy that he's got such a hole and he's made it this far in his career, because he's had a few good performances in the UFC as well. But I think anyone who comes up against him now, that's going to be the tactic. And Park was smart to do that, even though he is a striker. He was smart to do that, and I don't want to see him against Chimaev, but it was a good win, and he got a record in the process, and he was happy about it. So good luck to the fella.
Absolutely, and I think that's pretty much the card done for me. But I know you did want to speak about the first fight of the night, which I missed, which was Khabib Nurmagomedov against Mark Striegel, I think that says. What happened there?
Yeah, it's just a standout performance. It's when you're coming in, you make your debut. Your second name's Nurmagomedov. You've got a lot on your back, and you come in and you get a huge awareness debut. But he's just coming off a loss, so to come in and make a statement like that and get it was a vicious KO. It was one of the best of the night. So just shout out to him. And then also on the fight of the night was Garam against Gamrot, which I personally had the other way. I thought Gamrot should have got the decision, and Garam was with me on that one. But it was a really fun fight. It was similar to the Jimmy Crute Modestas Bukauskas one, where you had 2 really well matched guys, clearly high level, who are going to be at the top one day, just not quite yet. And it was brilliant, and it was a brilliant way to round off the prelims, and really great fight. And then just lastly, Gillian Robertson. I think she's really underappreciated. She's 25. She already holds, I think, the submission record in women's MMA. She carries on beating these people, and I want to see her move up the rankings now. I want to see her, take on some top opposition, because I believe she can be a champion one day, and I just hope that's the way they're pushing her, because she's got all the ability in the world, especially on the mat, and she's just too much for a lot of people on the mat. So great performance from her again over a highly ranked, highly considered contender, and then hopefully she goes on soon.
Sure, and that'll pretty much wrap up UFC Fight Night, Ortega versus Zombie. This weekend, we got the big one, UFC 254, Nurmagomedov versus Gaethje. the one we've all been waiting for. There's been a lot of build up to this. Obviously, a lot of personal stuff going on in Khabib's life and the coronavirus making Gaethje fight Ferguson for the interim title. So much storyline behind this. And we finally get to see it all go down this weekend, and the belts will be unified. Obviously, Khabib's going to be the favorite in this one for good reason, because he smashed everyone. He's got such dominant wrestling. He hasn't really had any challenges in his UFC career so far. But Gaethje is spoken of as his biggest threat. What do you think?
I did originally think Gaethje had a really good chance in this, but as it creeps closer, I'm just dead set on Nurmagomedov in this one. I just don't see how Gaethje can keep him off him. I know he's got good wrestling, but he never seems to use it. And I just don't think it's of the same level as Nurmagomedov. I know is he Division 1, and I know Americans dying out on that, but it's just a different style. Nurmagomedov, that's everything he does, and that's his whole game. And I just feel like Gaethje hit one of his best weapons is his kicks, but he can't really utilize them because Nurmagomedov's going to grab them. So he's going to grab them and then he's going to take them down. And then what's his ability like to get up? I think Gaethje, his route to victory is really just nailing him early, hitting him, following up and getting a finish, which he's very much capable of doing. But I just don't see it. I see Khabib, I see him getting the takedown, putting a beating on him, and getting a late finish, as we've seen him get quite a lot.
Khabib truly is the Mayweather of MMA. I mean, like, he's undefeated. Everyone knows what his style is. No one can stop it. The biggest difference and the biggest testament to Khabib's just ability is that in boxing, there's only one realm the fight can be in, which is the striking. Whereas in MMA, Khabib's wrestling so high level, but his striking has to be decent as well to keep these strikers from finishing him on the feet. And I think as far as the wrestling goes, Gaethje is a very, very talented wrestler. I've not seen wrestle, so I'm taking this from what other people have said. Even if he's a Division 1 All-American, whatever it is, they wrestle in the middle of the mats, right? So if he can keep this fight in the middle of the cage, he can stuff those takedowns. I have no doubt he can stuff the takedowns in the middle of the cage. But he doesn't wrestle against a cage in like college wrestling or anything. So if Khabib can push him to the cage, he's going to struggle a lot. And I think that's where Khabib's going to take it. He'll probably shoot in the open, and he'll hopefully push him to the cage, grab a hold of his legs, pull his legs out from under him, do the little triangle thing he does on his legs to lock him down, and just go from there. And I heard Gaethje saying in an interview before coming up to this, I think it was with Brett Okamoto, I could be wrong, but he was saying that if he gets put on his back, he's going to be stuck there. And if you're saying that, like, how is someone who's watching this fight meant to have confidence in his ability to get out of that position? I understand what he meant by that. He meant that he's not going to be put on his back. He's going to turn to his knees and try and get up. And I think that's what we'll see. I think if Khabib gets him to the ground, he's not gonna settle to be on his back. He's going to turn to his knees, and Khabib's going to take his back. Can he get up? We'll see. I do expect Khabib to find the finish in this one, and I expect it to be by submission. And if I had to pick a round, I'd say the second round. But if Gaethje's to win this, which he definitely could, it'll be a stand-up exchange where he catches him and puts him away. But Khabib's striking is very, very good. He doesn't get much credit for it, but he is a good striker. He might not be someone who's going to put you away on the feet, but he's very talented at not getting hit. When's the last time we saw him get hit? Against Poirier. Did Poirier finish him? No. He was able to move backwards, recompose himself, shoot in for the takedown, and get a submission. So I expect to see Khabib dominate this one.
Yeah, I do think Gaethje, he's getting a lot of hype going into this one, and he got that one punch power, which does make him a really big threat. But I think he lacks some things in terms of submission threats and off his back. What's he going to be like? I think Tony Ferguson is still the biggest threat because I think he'd be relentless off his back. I think he'd be attacking for subs, he'd be throwing elbows, he'd be doing a lot. I don't know what Gaethje's going to be doing. I think he'll just be scrambling, trying to get to his feet and failing pretty much. I think Khabib's going to be able to get him down, and I think Gaethje is as tough as they come, so he'll hang in there for as long as possible. Eventually he'll succumb and he'll get submitted like a lot of people do. So I'm not writing him off. I do think he's got a chance. I think he's got a chance in the first and second round. Even if he gets battered the entire first round, the fight stands back up. We go out for second round and he can nail him. And I do think, Gaethje's got one punch power. He can do it. I just don't see him doing it on it this weekend. I think someone will get Khabib eventually. He is one-dimensional. He does have his style, and someone will clock onto it eventually and beat him. It's just if he sticks around long enough for that to happen, because if he's talking 30-0 and let's get out of here, it'll be McGregor 2 or, Ferguson or GSP, and then he's done. So hopefully he sticks around long enough to actually get to see him get beat, because you want to see, these huge legendary champions taking on all comers, and I hope he sticks around after this, and it's going to be a great fight. It's still the biggest card of the year. It was meant to be a bit bigger, but it's still huge, and any night with Khabib is huge. And then also for us in Europe, it's prime time, so happy days.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on Khabib's wrestling, not so much on Khabib's wrestling, on Gaethje's submission threats, and Ferguson as well. I'm a huge Ferguson fan, so in that matchup, I'm going to be biased all day. But as far as submitting Khabib goes, he doesn't give you the opportunity, because he doesn't let you pull guard. He doesn't let you work your submission to guard. He'll hold your hand underneath you in the Dagestani handcuff or whatever. He'll take that base away from you. He'll sit in side control. He'll move to mount. But you can't really find many submissions from those positions. If he let Gaethje might not be a good example, but if he let Dustin Poirier pull guard against him, Poirier might have been able to throw up a triangle and armbar. But it's not possible with Khabib's pressure and his ability to advance his own position. And he always seems to find the back, and he always seems to do it as the person's trying to stand up. They always turn their back to him, which is, I could see Gaethje getting caught in a rear naked choke there. If Gaethje was to submit him, I'd see it being a guillotine, because twice now we've seen Khabib get caught in guillotines. He hasn't been submitted, but against Dustin Poirier and against Rafael dos Anjos, both those fights, he got caught in a guillotine, and they just weren't able to finish it. But if someone's going to submit Khabib, it's going to be in a neck attack. And I think you're right, Ferguson is the biggest threat, mostly because of his neck attack game and the Darce chokes he throws out there. So shooting on him is very dangerous. You don't want to put your neck in. I just don't think Gaethje's going to be the one to submit him. But he could win by knockout, and that would be interesting. Last factor we'll speak on this fight is the wild card here. Michael Chandler's standing by. If either of these guys miss weight or have complications, he's stepping in to take on either guy. Who do you think is the easier fight for him? I know it's probably a simple question, but who would you prefer to see Michael Chandler fight if one of these fighters has fallen out?
I'd prefer to see him face Khabib, because I'm pretty sure him and Justin have similar level wrestling, but he utilizes it in MMA. Like, he hasn't just left it, in college. He's continued to use it in MMA, and he's someone who I respect as wrestler. And the way he's talking, he fancies himself as a wrestler, whereas as Justin openly admits that, I'm going to get taken down, and I might not be able to get back up. Whereas Chandler's saying, no, I'm going to take Nurmagomedov down. I'm the one who's going to be using my wrestling, and it's just that whole thing. So although on a piece of paper or wherever it says, Justin's this level of wrestler and Chandler's probably around the same, I think Chandler would have a better chance in the wrestling exchanges, and that's what I'm interested in seeing. But obviously he's not gonna, I don't think he's gonna be out. But then Justin's got the knockout power, so it's very interesting. I definitely prefer to see Chandler against Khabib. I think that's a really fun fight, but I'd much prefer to see Khabib against Justin. Hopefully that's the fight we get.
Look, I didn't even think about that, but that's actually a good point you raise. I'm changing a little bit here. I think someone who's going to out-grapple Khabib is going to be someone who takes him down. I know Khabib has submissions off his back, and he's got Sambo, which is a lot of like submission grappling. It's not like wrestling where you're looking to establish position and land ground and pound or whatever. So I think if someone like Chandler can get in there and take Khabib down, that could cause problems for him, especially if Khabib's shooting for a takedown and he gets reversed and ends up on the bottom. Like, mentally, that's got to do something to him, because he's never been in that position before. So maybe that's a method for victory for Chandler, although I don't like his chances. I really don't, especially because he doesn't know who's going to fight. So he's preparing for both guys. He's not solely preparing for one or the other. And let's face it, if one of them's going to miss weight, it's probably going to be Khabib. When's Gaethje ever miss weight? I don't think he ever has. So I think Chandler's probably more preparing himself for Gaethje. If he's smart anyway, he is. But I want to see this fight. I hope this fight does happen. And yeah, it should be fireworks.
Yeah, and I don't really. Obviously, it'd be nice for Chandler to come in and get that shot, but I don't really feel like he really wants it right now. I think he'd prefer to, fight Dustin or fight Tony or someone like that, and then earn a spot and and get a big, huge opportunity when he's able to train 12 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, for Khabib or for Justin. It wouldn't be perfect circumstances for him, and I'm sure he'd do his best, but I want to see him, at the top of his game, and it definitely wouldn't be him at the top of his game if he filled in at UFC 254.
Yeah, I agree. So hopefully we do see him. I do like that Tony fight. I think that's a reasonably good fight for both guys. So if they make something like that, but we won't talk about that too much. We'll move on to the co-main event, which I think is the best money maker on the card. So if you're a betting man, take my advice here. Whittaker is an underdog in this for some reason. He's a 2-for-1 underdog. I don't know why. I don't know what people are thinking. He's the former champion. He has one loss to Israel Adesanya, but he's a sizable underdog in this. So if I'm a betting man, Whittaker's getting my money this weekend.
Yeah, he's probably getting mine. I'm not wholly sold on his Darren Till performance. I don't think it was that impressive. It was two men, kind of having a standoff, and it was very technical, and it's hard to tell. And I don't think it's going to be that against Jared. I think it's going to be more of a firefight, and it just depends how he actually is. Has he fully bounced back? I think he looked good, but it was Till who'd lost a few fights, at welterweight before stepping up, getting a tiny win against Gasper, and he just edged past it. So it's all about where Till is and how you rank Till and things like that. So I don't think he should be that much of an underdog, but I do understand it because Cannonier's been active. He's been not only active since he come to middleweight, he's looked fantastic. He's been, taking everyone out. But in terms of wins, he beat Old Anderson Silva and he beat David Branch, whereas that one win against Jack Hermansson is a real standout. That's a top tier win. So it's but this would be the best of his career. So for me, it's a 50-50 fight, and it's all about if Robert Whittaker is back to his best, championship level Robert Whittaker, I think he'll win. But if he's anything short of that, I expect Cannonier to rise to the occasion and win as well. So for me, it's a really 50-50 fight, and it's just one I'm just going to sit back and watch and, probably not put much money down because I'm not sure at all on who's going to take it.
I disagree. I'm pretty sold on Whittaker in this one, and my reasoning for that is Whittaker's fought loads of these guys like Cannonier who are very aggressive and they come forward with combinations to try to put you away. And he hasn't been finished by any of them. His finishes have come to technical strikers. Israel Adesanya and Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, the last two guys to finish him from memory. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. Which are two guys who are both incredible counter strikers and very, very technical. And, I mean, Darren Till's a technical fighter himself, and he dropped to Whittaker, but Whittaker still outpointed him. And to me, that was a very impressive win because of Darren Till's a very great striker. Like, there's no two ways about it. Darren Till's an impressive striker, and for him to overcome him in that situation really showed the evolution in his game from the Stylebender fight. Not that I think he's ready to fight Stylebender again, but yeah, there's definitely evolution. And I think we've seen him fight people like Cannonier. Yoel Romero is not the best example of it because Yoel's a counter striker, but he's explosive and he comes forward in barrages, much like Cannonier. Yeah, Derek Brunson's the most similar fighter I can think of to Cannonier in their striking. Derek Brunson and Janet Cannonier both come forward with barrages of punches, both look for a finish. And what happened when Whittaker fought Derek Brunson? He found a finish himself. So I do expect Whittaker to find a finish on Cannonier at some point in this fight. And the other thing with Cannonier's record, his best win, like you said, to Manson. There's no arguing that. But Hermansson's not like a technical striker. He's not like some impressive striker. He's not bad. I'm not writing off his striking ability, but he's not known for his striking. He's known for his grappling ability and his ground and pound. Whereas Robert Whittaker is pretty impressive on the feet. I mean, his whole career, he's remained on the feet for the majority of it. I can't think of one fight where he's gone out with a wrestling game plan. So I think this is going to be a showcase fight for Whittaker. He's going to get a finish and he'll earn himself a title shot if Izzy's up for that fight.
I am surprised to hear that he's the underdog heading in because I would have him a favourite. I think, just off everything he's done, how he looked good in his last fight, although I'm not too still sold on he's back to his best. I also think Cannonier's been finished a few times, and it all depends how highly you rate that Hermansson win, and it's made better by the fact that he's gone out and subbed Kelvin Gastelum straight after losing that fight. He's clearly still one of the best guys in the division. It's a really fun fight. It's just it really has such a say on what happens next. Like if Whittaker wins, I just don't see Israel wanting to fight him again. And I think then he moves up and, maybe go challenges for light heavyweight title, something like that. But if Cannonier wins, I think he'll stick around a bit longer. So this fight's huge. It's got such huge implications on not just the middleweight title picture, but also the light heavyweight title picture and what happens there. So it's a huge, huge fight. It's a great co-main event. And for me, it's a 50-50. I do give the edge to Whittaker just because I've seen him. He's one of the toughest guys you'll ever see in the sport. But Cannonier, he's looked great, so it's hard to write him off as well. It's just a really fun fight.
Yeah, and to give Cannonier some credit, his losses have come to top-tier guys. From memory, there's Glover Teixeira, Jan Blachowicz, and Dominic Reyes, the three last guys to finish him, I'm pretty sure. And they're both all top-of-the-line light heavyweights. But Whittaker's former champ, he's obviously like top three. I don't know if you could... Yeah, I could say top two right now. It depends how he goes in this fight. But he's definitely one of the best middleweights in the world. So I think it's going to be a tough fight for Cannonier. I'm taking Whittaker. And we'll move on. Before that, we have some heavyweights, the 6th and 8th ranked fighters. Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris. Pretty much, in my eyes, technical striker versus knockout puncher. And I probably favor Volkov in this one. What do you think?
I favour Walt Harris. I think it's exactly what you said. It's a technical striker, puncher. A heavyweight, I just don't think you can afford to be a technical striker. I really don't. I just think there's so much danger coming back at it. That have your point fighting. What happens is someone like Derek Lewis put your lights out in the third or round or whatever it was. So I think Volkov he's very impressive and he's able to get by people like Greg Hardy and people like that. But Walt Harris is a serious guy. He had over him all over the place in round one there. So I expect him to come in and wing punches and maybe get an early finish. But the longer this fight goes, Volkov should be able to take over. And it's a good, again, as I said, 50-50 fight. Technical striker, the power puncher. I just always back the power puncher, the heavyweight. I think that's the way to win a heavyweight. If you want to be a champion, go and knock people out. That's how to do it. And I just don't think Volkov's technique is going to get him there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in terms that the heavyweight's the one division where power trumps everything, doesn't it? Like, except for wrestling, I suppose. But Volkov in this one, I think he's going to stick him back with the jab, keep him at distance. Volkov's the longer guy. He's probably the taller guy from memory. And I think he's just going to use his range to keep Harris away. I don't think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I think it's going to be quite a boring fight where Volkov just keeps him at a distance with his jab, lands some pretty, powerful crosses and stuff. I just think it's going to be a bit of a technical showcase for Volkov. But Harris does have power, and he could just come marching forward and try and land something, which will see himself get finished, or he'll find a finish. So it could be fireworks. I'm not expecting anything too crazy from this one, but I will take Volkov over Harris in this one. Is there any other fights you want to speak of on the main card or on the prelims? What do you got?
So on that main card, we've got that Ankalaev Kutalaba one for the millionth time. So hopefully they actually make it and just get it over and done with. Because as I said I've said it a few times before, I'm not that interested, but somehow it's ended up being on the main card of one of the biggest cards of the year. So here we are, and I expect Ankalaev. I expect Ankalaev to get the win, and I expect him to do it in pretty similar fashion. And hopefully the referee doesn't step in and ruin it this time, because he was on his way to doing it anyway. UFC Norfolk, was it? So yeah, I expect that. And then below that, we've got some great fights, which I would prefer. I always get confused with the way they line these cards up, because you've got Stefan Struve against Tai Tuivasa on the prelims, and then you've got Jacob Malkoun against Phil Hawes on the main card. So it's confusing. And it's just one thing to point out about this card is that it was meant to be the best card of the year by a million miles. We were meant to have Yair against Zabit. We were meant to have Dustin against Tony, and it kind of fell apart, but it's still strong. It's still a really great card. It's just, it was meant to be an epic card, and it's not quite that, but anything with Khabib on it is going to be huge. So I expected to do some of the best numbers of the year, but it could have been so much more.
Yeah.
And what else do you want to speak about?
That's pretty much it for me. I agree. The prelims they're fine. There's some alright fights in here, but nothing too crazy. That feature prelim, Tai Tuivasa versus Stefan Struve. Obviously, it's two heavyweights. Hopefully, it'll be fireworks. Hopefully, it's not a boring one. But it's not really worth breaking down too much. And I think the reason why it is the feature prelim is so they get people tuning into those prelims, right? Because it could be quite easily be on the main card. It could be above the women's flyweight fight that only half the event. I can't remember who pulled out. Calvillo pulled out, that's right. Murphy's fighting a debutant now. So it could be on the main card, but I think they put it on the feature prelim to get people to tune into that, and I would definitely be tuning into that because for me, it's going to be a long night. For you, it's going to be a good night. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for UFC 254. We'll jump on some news. What do you have in news?
So just the funny story that we picked up last week is that Mike Perry was he was trying to auction off his thing. You know, we had all kinds coming in. We had Darren Till, we had porn stars, we had NFL stars coming in, bidding for that. And then all of a sudden, Dana White's the party pooper, and he comes in and he says, no, you can't do that. And then that's just game over now. So I guess it'll just be Mike and his girlfriend in the corner against Robbie Lawler, and we can just look forward to a fun fight now and not worry about everything else.
Well, he did say he can't auction off the corner spot, but can we get Darren Till in that corner still? That's the question I want to know, because surely he's a licensed corner person with being a fighter himself. So that'd be the best way to save this one. But it is good that he's taking a stand on this, because I would hate to see them sell off corner spots like that. It would just be a bit crazy, wouldn't it? And make it a bit of a circus. But, you know, it's good they've taken a stand on this, and hopefully we still see Till in his corner.
Well, the thing is that UFC fighters aren't even allowed to put, adverts on the flags or on the shorts or anything like that. So to think that someone would actually be allowed to do this is, a bit crazy. But yeah, it was a funny little side note, and then Dana White just nipped it in the bud on the weekend. So that's over. Darren Till's probably got about $5,000 sitting there because from his GoFundMe as well. So I don't know what he does with that now. He must have to give it all back. But it was just a little funny thing, and moving on from that one, a bit more serious news is that Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier it's creeping closer to official now, because they've both said beyond that, the Jerry Jones, who's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, I think, he said you're free to use our stadium. So it's gearing up to, for a huge fight in January, and if it seems like Conor McGregor's kind of called Dana's bluff, because he's kind of said, oh no, we'll give you January, and then he's instantly took it, when I don't think Dana was expecting them to either. So I'm still not 100% confident this fight's going to get done, but I am quite confident. I'm more confident than I was last week. Yeah,
and hopefully it does get done, because Conor does need to fight again, and if he really wants that title shot against Khabib, he needs to beat one of these top contenders at lightweight. And Dustin Poirier's that guy. I think he's ranked number 2. He might have jumped ahead of Tony. Yeah, so he'd probably be number 2 then. And if Conor gets a win here, you can't really deny the guy a title shot. As much as I don't really think he deserves it because he took so long away. If he beats Poirier, there's no disputing it. He's going to be the number 1 contender after Gaethje and Khabib fight. So hopefully this does happen, and January seems like a realistic timeline for it, especially if they want to do it in a stadium with payers or whatnot. I don't really want to make a breakdown of this fight right now, because I'd have to do the X's and O's to work that out. But it's definitely a winnable fight for Conor, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's one of them where we've seen on the weekend Ortega came back and he looks sensational, because he's clearly been working hard for the past few year or whatever. Has McGregor been doing the same thing? Not over the last year where he's been out since January. Since he's been, he took that boxing match, since he fought Adi Alvarez, he hasn't really been in the gym. And is he improving or is he declining? Because Dustin Poirier is 100% improving. He's getting better. He's the clear number 1 contender in my eyes. So if Conor McGregor is able to beat him, that's huge. And I don't think Khabib would even try and deny that rematch if he manages to beat Poirier. But it's all ifs and buts right now, but it's a huge fight, and it's going to be exciting, and it's creeping closer. So as an MMA fan, all you can do is be excited, because it's getting there. I'm fairly confident it happens now. Still not 100%, but it's looking good.
Absolutely. I've got 2 things here before we wrap up. Not UFC related, but that's fine. This one's MMA related, and that's Bellator 249 took place, and Chris Cyborg got her first career submission against Arlene Blencow. I watched the fight, and Cyborg just looked pretty impressive. She was happy to wrestle. She didn't really want to be standing with this chick. Blencow is a pretty highly ranked boxer from memory. I think she's a boxing champion, and she was looking to become an MMA champion as well. And so Cyborg just really put her on her with the wrestling, beat her up on the feet a little bit, especially in the second round. She kind of started to pop up. First round was pretty wasn't the most entertaining one. But the second round, she started to really throw her shots, took it to the ground and choked her out. So good stuff to Cyborg. Did you have a chance to catch that one? Or
I seen the submission, but I'm surprised to hear it is actually a fair submission. You know, she's had such a a long career. I just assumed she would have picked up one along the way, but that's crazy. And it's Bellator need to be finding her some true contenders, because I think Cyborg's even talking about switching over to boxing now and taking on someone like Katie Taylor. So it would have been cool to see it, strike with the striker there. But if you can, as we said before about Park, if there's an easy way to victory, you should take it. It's you're gambling with your health and your long-term health. So if there's an easy way to victory, take it, and there she did. So Cyborg's still one of the greatest ever, and it's just a shame that she's not in the UFC. So she can, do that rematch with Nunez and fight all them girls there, because there's some fun fights now in them upper echelons of the 135, 145 divisions, and I wish she was in the mix. I was saying with Julia Budd, I wish she was in the mix as well.
Yeah, I can't help but agree. But, it was an impressive win for her, and hopefully she can defend that belt for some time. We will jump to some boxing news. That's a good segue. Teofimo Lopez beat Vasyl Lomachenko by unanimous decision to claim 4 titles and become the unified lightweight champion of the world. Pretty impressive victory for Lopez. I thought he won 8 rounds to 4 personally. I thought he just dominated him. Lomachenko seemed to take the first 5 or 6 rounds off. He really started coming alive in the 8th, and he probably won from the 7th or 8th till the 11th. He was leading the dance. And then in that final 12th round, Lopez came back and put it on him even harder. Beautiful win. Definitely was like championship material. I thought with boxing being boxing, some weird stuff could have gone on with the judging, which it did because the scores were skewed. But thankfully he got the win, and hopefully we see what he does next.
In terms of Lomachenko, he's been on acceleration through his career. He's been jumping straight into these challenges, and I don't think I still think he's one of the pound best fighters in the world. I just think 135 is a bit too big for him, and his talent's got him through so far. He's been able to beat the likes of Luke Campbell and Jorge Linares. But when you've got a fresh young contender in Lopez, who's huge for the weight, he's even talking about going up to 140 now. It's going to be tough, and I think the longer he stays at 135, the more chance you have of him getting beat more of these beatings. I think he should drop back down to 130. But Lopez, huge. He's basically the unified champion right now, undisputed. I know there's that WC belt hanging around, but it's a huge win, and it's a huge scalp, because I think a lot of people wrote him off going in, and as a young contender, and he managed to pull it off. So congrats to him. I'm sure Lomachenko will be back. I hope he drops back down, because I don't think 135 is the way for him. But we'll see. Yeah,
I pretty much agree with everything you said there. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Is there anything else you had to speak about?
No, just roll on YouTube UFC 254. It's a huge card. Can't wait to see Khabib back in action. And we'll recap it next week.
For sure, and we'll speak to you then to recap that card. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe.
Thanks, guys.